Hey guys, I haven't made a video in a while. I was on a little bit of a hiatus, kind of like a sabbatical, from teaching so I could focus on my own work. And during that time, while painting and experimenting and trying different things and trying to re-meet myself, I remembered something from the past that really reacquainted me with my foundation, my origins. When I was in elementary school, all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever, my parents changed schools for me and my older sister. And we were sent to this Islamic school. So I respect your opinions about your religion. I respect your background. I respect your beliefs. But this is my life. And I'm going to talk about it the way I want to. And I'm going to talk about my experiences the way they happened. I'm not trying to offend you. I'm trying to talk. There's a difference. Imagine how oppressive basic elementary school is. Just the bullying, the shyness, the awkwardness, the social pressure, the fear, all the things that an introvert worries about as a child. Times that by 100, and that's private Islamic school. It is a nightmare. Throw on top of it a lot of religious dogma, a lot of religious supremacy. It just becomes a horrible place to be for an artist who had questions about the world. So there was no place for curiosity to expand. There was also the fact that it was a private school, and we weren't there because we were rich. We were a very, very poor family. 6 children, refugees from the Iraq War. We were there on some kind of grant that they give a select few underprivileged people to go to the private school, attend it for free, and that's only given to a select few students. And God did the other students know that we were the poor kids. We were the charity attendees. So you were surrounded by students whose parents were factory owners, business owners, huge names in Canadian industry. It's also preteens, so 12 years old, 13 years old. And so every morning when you go into this school, you're forced to do this prayer with all the other students, and you're forced to wear a uniform. In school, we were supposed to cover up, so you're supposed to be fully covered as a girl. The uniform has strict standards and strict rules. And there was also the lessons, there was also an Islamic class, and how to be a proper Muslim girl. There were prayers midday where the whole school would stop and we'd all go pray. And that may be beautiful in your experience of it, but for me, it was very oppressive. They were so out of touch with the common student's experience. And there was no notion, mention, or even whisper of a student's psychology or a counselor, place to go where when you feel upset, you can go to the teacher and speak. There was no such thing as that. If you were upset, go read the Quran. Like, that was their answer to everything. And it's just a bad place to be. I can't express that anymore. Any questions you had, any emotional distress you had, any pain you felt, Islam was the answer. Any curiosity, any creativity, do it for Allah. Like, imagine dough that needs to rise, but it's in a tight box. Where does it go? It just solidifies. It just doesn't rise. It turns into calcified cube. And once you become a calcified cube, then you're a true Muslim. It's so weird. And it's just this really, really dark place to be. And in that environment, that restrictive, infertile environment, I discovered The Lord of the Rings, which is just, it's like oil and water. They just don't mix. Fantasy and high fantasy starts to compete with the high fantasy of Islam. So they really discourage. I'm surprised that they even had a copy of The Lord of the Rings in the library. But high fantasy novels like Lord of the Rings were heavily discouraged. So I discovered them, and you can only imagine what ensued, because I wanted more fantasy. I I exhausted the fantasy realm of the Muslim world for the past, the present, and the future. They kind of answer all the questions for you. Questions about adventure and questions about the cosmos. Literally questions about stars were always answered. Oh, that's God. God did that. In my belief, personally, all religion is a cult. If you practice religion, I respect you. I'm never going to tell you what to believe, but this is what I believe from what I've come to know. And I came out of the belly of the beast. All religion, organized religion, I believe, is a cult. You have to subscribe to a certain type of lifestyle and a certain set of rules that even in the privacy and dignity of your mind, those rules stand. It wants to set up pillars up in your mind. So even your free thinking mind, your liberty to question, to exist, your legitimacy as a human with a brain, to be curious is constricted. And having found Lord of the Rings, up until Lord of the Rings, my world was small. It was so tiny. Barely, some fairy tales from school. They helped me kind of build my imagination. I was always dormantly an artist ever since I was a child. The Lord of the Rings became the big bang for me. And from there, I started to get real pillars. Instead of the pillars of Islam, I started to have pillars of morality, which Islam liked to pretend it offers, but it's always based back to some kind of proclamation of surrender to the Lord. And I felt like that was so weird, because the only one in the Lord of the Rings who was trying to get everyone to proclaim fealty to him was Sauron, and he was the bad guy. So things were starting to get really weird when they overlapped, and starting to understand why Sauron was a bad guy, and essentially what's his problem, right? Like, what's his issue? And he wanted control, not in a direct way. This was the biggest lesson I learned, is that the villain wasn't outwardly claiming they were a villain. As a child, that was a crazy lesson for me to learn. Wait a second. It's not like in the cartoons and kids shows. The villains don't proclaim, hey guys, I'm the villain. Because I always asked, hey, if they know they're the bad guy, if a guy is right there saying he's a bad guy, why do people listen to him? And then I learned the bad guy doesn't always say, I'm the bad guy. He says, I'm the good guy. So that was like a huge lesson for me. I started to notice that Allah was sounding a whole lot like Sauron. And I started asking valid questions and got in a lot of trouble. And so I still carried that book around with me everywhere. It was in tatters. And the moment I found it, I swear to you, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not telling tall tales. That book glowed on the bookshelf. And when I was trying to find a book, our teacher took us to the tiny little library in the school, because it was a small school, and it was just one of the smaller rooms in the hall that was turned into a library. And he told us, pick a book and read it for the rest of the semester, and at the end of the year you're all going to write a report. So I was looking around, and all I saw was just the spine of the book, pressed in between other books. I reached for it strictly because it glowed. I'm not kidding. I'm not lying. I'm not pretending. I'm not trying to make this more fantastical than it really is. Believe me, it glowed, and I picked it, and I read the title, and I read the back. And I wasn't very good at reading. I had really bad reading aptitude and reading comprehension and listening comprehension. I was unsatisfactory in all of those. And I was like, oh, this book's long. This book's got a lot of pages. So I took it to the teacher and I said, I want this one. And he said, oh, that one's advanced. You might want to pick something else. Because I was just in grade 6. I was like 11, 12. And I was like, no, I want to try this one. And then he said, okay, but you're going to, you might not want it. So go ahead, try it, and let me know what you think. And that's the kind of teacher Brother Omar was. He's not the kind that would force you to go change the book. And that's what this whole video is about. This whole thing led us to Brother Omar. Of all the teachers I came across in that school, and even in public elementary school, I never came across a teacher like him. He let me read the book, and I read it, and I couldn't understand a damn thing. I didn't even know what I was reading. And I had to read that first chapter 1,000 times. I barely got the meaning of the words, let alone the spirit of the chapter. I could speak English fluently, but I just couldn't piece together concepts that were described. I couldn't keep up with the world he was building. And everything was just very obscure. But I decided to keep reading until I was good at reading. And then for some reason, I was good at reading. And I finished the book, and I was just amazed with myself. So I became obsessed, and I started drawing like crazy. I would, unfortunately, steal printer paper. I would go into the lab, the computer lab, and take a lot of it. And Brother Omar, because in school you don't say Mr. Teacher last name, you say brother first name. So Brother Omar started noticing that during the unfortunate politics of the missing printer paper, there was a girl who was coming out with lots and lots of drawings on printer paper. And the drawings were all about Lord of the Rings. And he looked at the paper, looked at me, looked at my drawings. Every day I'd show up and I'd show him my drawing. I'd be like, Brother Omar, look, I drew the Black Riders. Brother Omar, look, I drew Aragorn. I drew this, I drew that. So one day he shows up with a sketchbook, the Strathmore drawing sketchbooks. And he gives it to me and he says, not, oh, stop stealing printer paper. Instead, he said, the quality of the printer paper is actually really bad. You should use this. This is better quality paper. And he gave me a sketchbook, and there is no greater moment in my past than that moment. You know, some people say, oh, you know, it was this birthday, or this thing, or when my family went here. No, for me, it was the moment my teacher gave me a sketchbook. He made my art real. He made it so that I needed art supplies. I was the kind of artist whose art was so good she needed art supplies. Like that was that was so amazing for me. He recognized my art in a way that my parents never did, or my culture never did, or the religion never did. So my parents were for them it was just silly. It was just completely silly. It was nonsense in their eyes. I spent a good amount of my life having zero support from them, and a teacher coming out of nowhere in the fray, in the thick of living as a Muslim girl. He brings me this book, and in no time I fill it with art. I fill it with all kinds of drawings, and I show it to him every single day. Brother Omar was actually the only teacher that had noticed the bruises and marks that I had on me. And so sometimes the bruises would come through, and, you know, from my home life, and whip marks and all of that. I don't want to trigger anyone or upset anyone, but the only teacher that saw them and asked me about them was Brother Omar. And of course I'd come up with a lie. Oh, I was playing and I fell, or something like that. It kind of, I guess, quieted him, but I think he always looked at me a little differently after he saw some of the more serious bruises. And it was just, if someone were to say, what's the most miraculous thing that ever happened to you, it was the moment Brother Omar brought me a sketchbook and validated my identity as an artist. I started to take myself seriously because my teacher took me seriously. He is the reason I teach art. He's the reason I'm an artist. He's the reason I'm a teacher. And I will always love him forever and ever. And I visited him once when I was in university, and I didn't visit him again after that. In the Islamic world, a woman visiting a man is all they see. They don't see a student visiting a teacher, honoring her teacher, paying respects. They don't see that. They just see, what's this woman visiting a man? So I did it once, and there was this big explosive reaction about it. And my mom was like, what are you doing visiting a man? You know how haram that is? You know how embarrassing that is for me? And I was like to her, this isn't a man, this is my teacher. Like, this was my teacher in school. He helped me. He was kind to me. It's like women have to carry all of the flags of Islam. Most of the modesty and most of the piety and all of that. The poster for it, the mascot for it is a woman in a burqa. Yeah. I never got to see him again after that because by the time I was old enough to make my own decisions, I used any agency I had accumulated in my life to run away. And I managed to run away and I never looked back. And yeah, he's just out there. He freaking changed my life. And he's like the best thing that ever happened to a kid like me. I will always be grateful to him. I don't think, when you draw bad cards and when you spawn in this world and you realize you spawned in a bad area, I don't think you're fully abandoned. It's why I'm trying to stress to you that that book glowed. And I don't believe in any religion. I don't believe in God. I don't believe that there is a God that looks upon this world as its creation and does not interfere. I could not get past that, and I will never get past that. No one can ever convince me and tell me it's for some greater good, because it's just ridiculous. You just have to look at history. And I don't think anyone can ever address that. To me, the Quran is like a narcissist manifesto. All religious books are bow to me, dedicate yourself to me, give yourself to me, surrender to me. You'll only be saved if you surrender to it. Just honestly sounds like Satan wrote the book as Satan was described, and the real God just never really existed to begin with. Fables about how the moral of the story was that you should have surrendered harder to God. It's so weird. For me, it's just Sauron. Sauron wrote a book and a bunch of people believed it. And I can't get past that. I can't. And I think the reason that book glowed is because some part of me, just some deeper part of me that on some insane level wanted me to try something above my skill tier. And it wanted me to try something that I would never have tried if I stayed within the box that world built for me. And I wanted so badly to be smart and be knowledgeable, but I just didn't have the resources or the teachers. I had dyslexia, I had ADHD when I was a kid. I could not do math. I just wanted so badly to be better at things. I didn't like the feeling of being not smart. It was a very, very desperate feeling. I think some part of me wanted me to try the book at the top of the shelf. And I think that's why it just glowed. Try harder, reach higher. I wish nothing but endless paradise and blessings and happiness and riches beyond comprehension and good things for Brother Omar. I wish good health and endless love for him. And I don't know where he is now. And I don't want to bother him, because he's still in that Islamic world, and there's this extreme gender segregation in that world that has caused such a huge rift in this society. I don't want to offend him in any way if that is something he practices. From where I am in life and my ability to have ran away and learn and get through school and garner enough knowledge and linguistic skills to get where I am in life is all due to the glowing book, the Lord of the Rings book he let me study, and the sketchbook he bought for me. And he helped me discover my identity as an artist. If there is something you're not trying right now because you think it's above your skill grade, or you think that maybe you're too dumb to do it or too weak to do it or not experienced enough, it really isn't some kind of motivational platitude when they say reach for the stars and you land on the moon. And you really will. If you reach for something higher than you, you will most likely land somewhere in that proximity. Maybe it isn't the exact goal you wanted to hit, but it is very far from where you were. And if you keep doing that in your skill development, try the thing that is uncomfortable and unfamiliar, you will surprise yourself with how much your art can change in just a year. And so in this time that I have been taking to reorient myself with myself, who am I if there are no phones, no internet, and only books and the world? Who am I? That's what I've been trying to do, completely detox from social media. I rediscovered that part of my past. And I leave you guys with one request. Please notice the effect social media is having on you. Just notice it. Your day-to-day, your experiences, the things you want to do, the way you do them. Not everything needs a photo taken of it. Not everything needs to be shared on Instagram. Not everything you make needs to be posted online. I believe the world of social media, this virtual world, is starting to collapse. It's starting to deteriorate. And I've noticed that it's very toxic and has affected the way we know ourselves. And one of the most important things we can do right now is reclaim ourselves. Who are we without the internet? And I know it seems so bizarre for me to post something online, but posting videos on YouTube seems like a very traditional thing now. After spending a year making shorts, posting a video on YouTube seems like the equivalent of people huddled around a radio and listening to it. You know, like it feels like the old internet, old-timey internet thing. I guess this is the least amount of internet I can internet right now. So making a video and posting it online is different than being chronically online, shuffling through walls of Instagram and TikTok. Anyway, I'm a millennial and I'm getting old, and it's starting to look like I have more gray hairs than black hairs in my head. And I have just a little bit of wisdom. We millennials are starting to become old people. And it's not like the old people of old people. That's not our old people. We're completely closed-minded, ignorant, cult following. You know, it's a new form of old people coming in for you guys. And we have your backs because we know what Sauron looks like. And we're going to try to guide you. And we know what his minions look like. And we know what it's like to live through no internet and with internet. We can help you guys calibrate your lifestyle. And from where I'm standing, my lesson to you as an older millennial, as I am entering my older years, I'll be 40 in no time. I just want to leave you guys with that message. Start stepping away from social media. Start leaving your house without your phone. Oh my God, no. Can you believe that's even something you can do anymore? Start leaving your house without your phone. Now, it's not like you have it with you. It's that it follows you everywhere. This need to stay in touch, to stay plugged in. Out of my hermitage, I come to you with these messages. It is time for us to step away from social media and reintroduce ourselves to the world around us and engage in healthy activities that we can bring back to our art. Being an artist is about making art that is meaningful. And I think the internet will always be there, and there's always a balanced way of doing things. The internet isn't inherently evil, but I believe the people who are running it dominantly right now are. You start to notice that when you leave social media and turn off the internet, there's not much that you've nurtured that is not internet related. These are the things that once the internet is off, these are the things left behind that enrich our lives. You guys also need to know what a Sauron is, what it looks like, the shapeshifter, the deceiver. And you won't know that if you're already drowning in the deception. And I believe the longer we linger, the more disproportionately we linger in the world of social media, the more that Sauron is winning. And the more we put it down and unsubscribe to the reality he creates, the reality that benefits only him, the more we actually live and enrich our experience of life. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Good luck with everything and happy drawing. Bye.